not good enough. And this one's not good enough.
Momo, so good to see you. But what are you doing here? Why are there so many piles of acorns around here?
Oh, I'm just organizing them.
I see, but how are you organizing them? Each pile looks exactly the same to me.
Oh, no, they are very, very different. All these piles are the bad acorns. See this one? It has a little scratch right here. And this one isn't as shiny as I'd like. And I don't love this one's color.
Oh, I didn't realize that those things made acorns bad. Do they taste differently?
Oh no, they all taste the same. But, well, I went over and visited my new friend Vera's house for the first time. And I noticed just how perfect all her acorns looked. Every single one was shiny, smooth, and perfect. I was so impressed. It made me realize that my acorns really aren't good enough. So now I'm reorganizing all of them and making sure they're all perfect, just like hers.
Wow, that sounds like a lot of work. And I have a feeling you'll be getting rid of a bunch of good and tasty acorns. That doesn't sound like you.
Maybe, but I don't care. I want my acorns to be like Vera's, so I got to reorganize.
I think our story might be good for you today, Momo. It's all about contentment, being happy with what you have.
Oh, I could never be happy with these acorns now. I mean, just look at this one. It has a teeny tiny little piece of dirt on it. Ugh, I can't even look at it. So disgusting.
Well, while you organize, why don't I share my story with you? Then maybe we can talk a little more about what it means to be content with what we have.
Sounds good. And this one's not good enough. And this one's
Our
not
story
good enough.
today takes place in the Outback of Australia, where two unusual friends find themselves on an adventure they never planned. If you ever went to visit the Australian outback, I'm pretty sure you would never see a koala playing with a kangaroo there. Koalas live up in trees after all, and kangaroos are happy bouncing around on solid ground. But despite these differences, there is a story of one very unlikely friendship that formed between these two species. From the moment Beau the koala and Ruby Rue the kangaroo met, they knew that they were meant to be friends, despite their obvious differences. They met one sunny day when they were both still little. They had just begun to explore the world outside of their mother's cozy pouches. Ruby Rue the kangaroo had been practicing hopping to strengthen her little legs when she accidentally hopped right on top of Beau the koala's head. Normally, of course, you wouldn't find a koala laying around on the ground since they are tree dwellers. But this particular day, Beau just happened to be stuck in a tuft of grass after slipping off of a low branch above. The tuft of grass where Beau lay also just happened to be the same tuft of grass that Ruby Rue was trying to hop over. After Ruby Rue jumped on Beau's head, she apologized profusely. Rubbing his head, Beau accepted the apology, and then the two began to talk. Ruby Rue, a very chatty kangaroo, began to ask Beau a lot of questions. What kind of creature was he? What was he doing on the ground instead of the tree? Where was his family? What did he eat? Ruby Rue and Beau talked happily right there in the middle of the shady eucalyptus grove for many long minutes. Eventually, Beau's mother, who had been looking for her lost baby koala, saw him sitting in the grass talking to a kangaroo. It was a strange sight, but she was more relieved to have found Beau again than anything else. She came down and gently placed Beau on her back. Before Beau left, the two marsupials promised each other that they'd meet again the next day at the same tree. Thus, the beginning of an unlikely but very sweet friendship began. As the months went on, Ruby Rue got much bigger and better at hopping, and Beau got bigger and better at climbing. They would hang out with their own families, eating their own foods for much of the day, but they always looked forward to their daily meetings in the shade of Beau's eucalyptus grove. During their meetings, Ruby Rue would tell a wide-eyed Beau all about the amazing places that she and her herd saw all around the great outback. Beau would listen excitedly. "I wish I could see all those places," he'd sigh. "All I've ever seen is this eucalyptus grove. It must be so much better to be out there in the real world, full of exciting and amazing things." Ruby Roo would shrug. "I mean, yeah, it's all fun to get out and everything, but really, Beau, this eucalyptus grove is as comfortable and beautiful as it gets. You have this burbling stream running through. You are up on the side of the hill where you can see the amazing rock formations out there across the desert. And really, there's no place like this when it comes to watching the sunset. I'm telling you, it's fun and all to hop around, but you have one of the best places in the whole outback." But the more Ruby Roo told Beau about the rest of the outback, the less and less happy he became. He began to complain more about his eucalyptus grove, the koalas there, the annoying sound that the stream made all day long, and the fact that he could only and always eat eucalyptus leaves. Ruby Roo didn't really understand why her friend was so upset. She missed the old, content Beau. One day, after listening to her friend complain again about his boring grove, she suddenly had an idea. "Okay, I know you don't like it here, and I don't really understand why, but I know something that could maybe make you realize how nice you have it here. What if you climbed onto my back and I took you for a long hop around the outback? I could show you what's out there in the real world. The water hole where the dingoes roam, the old farmer's house and his loud grandkids, the berry grove with the huge spiders. I'm not sure it's ever been done before, but we could give it a go." Beau's face slowly lit up. "I could ride on your back. I don't think this has ever been done in the history of the outback before, but I think it's a great idea. I can finally leave this boring place and find real fun and real adventure. Let's do it." Ruby Roo was glad her friend looked happy again. She hopped right next to the tree trunk where Beau clung, and after a couple tries, the two friends laughed in triumph as Beau held on comfortably to Ruby Roo's back. After a couple of trial hops, Ruby Roo set off, bounding and leaping out of the eucalyptus grove and down the dusty hill to show Beau the world beyond. "I can't believe this!" Beau shouted as Ruby Roo bounced past the watering hole and through a dry bunch of sparse trees. "This is amazing! Can we go to the farmer's house? You're always telling me about his fields and the, what do you call it? Tractor? Tractors! Oh, yes, the humans are very interesting to watch. Sometimes the farmer's grandkids leave a little bucket of old apples and carrots for us kangaroos to eat. Mmm. Let's go then." Ruby Roo took a slight turn to the right and wound her way through a small canyon with red rocks on either end. When they hopped through a patch of shrubs and over a small hill, she stopped. Before them lay several large squares of green fields surrounded by wooden fences. In the middle of all the fields sat the farmer's house and a little red barn beside it. "Wow," Beau whispered. "It's even cooler than I thought. I don't know if I can ever go live in my grove ever again. This is way too much fun." "Hold on tight," Ruby Roo said as she took off again, hopping down the hill and towards the farmer's house. As the two friends headed towards the farm, the long wooden fence that surrounded the property grew larger and larger. Beau wondered how they would get past this fence, and soon realized that Ruby Roo wasn't slowing down. She was going to hop the fence. He tried to strengthen his grip when he realized that they were going to be flying over the fence soon, but his hands had become sweaty and his grip kept slipping. The fence was right ahead of them, and just as he was about to yell for Ruby Roo to slow down, he felt her push off the ground in the biggest leap yet. Beau's stomach felt like someone had thrown it up towards the sky. He closed his eyes and in just a couple seconds felt his stomach dropping like a stone down towards the earth. As they soared down, he completely lost his grip. He felt Ruby Rue's fur leave his hands, and suddenly he was alone in the air, falling down towards the hard ground. With a loud thump, he landed in a pile on the floor.
Oh my, Beau! Are you alright? Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize that you wouldn't be able to hold on for that jump. I thought it'd be fun, but oh, you don't look so good.
Ruby Rue looked down at the twisted and dirty pile of fur next to her feet. Beau groaned as a sharp pain shot through his left arm. He turned onto his back, looking up into the worried face of his friend.
My arm,
he whispered. I can't move it.
Oh, no, 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 no.
Ruby Rue looked panicked.
What are we going to do? How can I even take you back to your grove if you can't hold on to my back? Oh, no, 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 no.
Ruby Rue suddenly stopped talking and stood still, concentrating hard. Beau knew what she was concentrating on because he had noticed it too. The ground beneath them was shaking. They looked at the ground and saw the tiny rocks beneath the blades of grass vibrating around. What is that? Beau asked. Then they heard something. A low rumble coming from across the middle of the fields. Ruby Rue was so panicked she could barely speak. Beau could see that her instinct was telling her to run, but she couldn't just leave her friend there. She looked frantically around to see where the sound was coming from, and her eyes grew wide as she spotted something in the distance.
Beau?
Yeah?
I didn't think things could get worse, but the farmer is driving his tractor over here.
He's looking right at me. What's he going to do? Beau looked up at his friend, trying to think of anything. But the rumbling of the tractor was so close now, Beau knew that he had no choice. They were going to meet the farmer. Ruby Rue and Beau shook as the green tractor drove right up to them and stopped. The sharp smell of gas filled their nose as the tractor idled beside them. Well, what do we have here? A kangaroo and a koala? What a strange sight to see you two together. But what's wrong with you? The farmer's gaze stopped on Beau, and a concerned look filled his face. He turned in his seat and stepped off the tractor, taking a few big strides to where Beau lay and then kneeling beside him. Ruby Rue stepped back a bit. She was ready to protect her friend if he needed it, but didn't want to do anything until she could tell if the farmer was kind or not. Beau looked up into the farmer's wrinkled face and brown eyes. He thought he would be petrified to be this close to a human, but something about the look in the farmer's eyes made him relax a little. You poor little Tack. Looks like you've broke your arm. How it broke is another question. Very strange finding a koala so far from a eucalyptus grove, but no matter. You gotta get fixed up either way. The farmer reached out his large, rough hands and scooped Beau up as gently as possible. Being in the arms of the farmer reminded Beau of when he was a small Joey in his mother's pouch. He didn't know where the farmer was taking him, but he had a feeling that the farmer wanted to help. Beau? Ruby Rue called to her friend as the farmer walked back towards the tractor, taking Beau with him.
It's okay, Ruby Rue. I think he's going to help me. Tell my family I'll be back soon.
Beau could see that Ruby Rue was calling out to him again, but now that he was so close to the roar of the tractor's engine, he couldn't hear what she was saying. The last thing he saw was her small wave goodbye as the farmer turned the tractor round and drove it towards the farmhouse. Beau was very surprised when the farmer drove up to a large and comfy-looking enclosure full of eucalyptus leaves. A woman stood in the enclosure, sweeping out the bottom. When she heard the tractor coming, she looked over and waved. Then she noticed Beau sitting in the farmer's arms and came out to greet them.
Oh, look at this poor little guy,
the older lady said to Beau as the farmer turned off the tractor and handed him gently to her. Found him out in the field next to a kangaroo, the farmer said. Very strange sight. Never seen anything like it. It looks like he broke his arm somehow.
Oh, did my husband find you all alone out there?
The farmer's wife crooned to Beau as she took him towards the enclosure.
Well, you came just in time since we just released our last koala friend back into the wild. You'll have this whole cage to yourself while you heal up.
The farmer's wife set Beau gently down in the middle of a bunch of eucalyptus leaves at the bottom of the enclosure.
I know it's probably not as nice as the home you're used to,
She said.
but it'll have to do till you can climb again. Greg, why don't you call Dr. Janet? She needs to come help us with this arm if it's going to heal properly.
The farmer and his wife closed the door behind them and left towards their house, leaving Beau behind in a pile of leaves. His tummy grumbled. He was used to constantly eating all day, and it must have been an hour or more since his last meal. He sniffed the eucalyptus leaf nearest to him and took a nibble.
Yuck!
He spat it out. It tasted nothing like his large and juicy leaves back in his own grove. But then he realized if he didn't eat these leaves, there was nothing else to eat. So he took a deep breath and began chomping again. As he chewed the less than tasty leaves alone in his strange place, he felt something stir deep inside him. He had never felt this way before and couldn't figure out why it was so uncomfortable and sad.
I think this must be homesickness.
He thought to himself as he chewed slowly and looked out across one of the fields towards the horizon. He had spent so many months now wanting to leave his grove, imagining all the great and amazing things in the outer world. Now all he wanted was to go home. He wanted his koala family around him, munching their best leaves in the world. He wanted to crawl down his tree and talk to Ruby Rue about her adventures. He wanted to hear the stream babbling and to watch the sunset from the top of his tree. After what felt like a very long time, he saw the farmer and his wife walking back, talking to a third person.
That's probably Dr. Janet coming to fix my arm,
he thought. Though he was thankful for their kindness, he wondered how long it was going to take for his arm to heal. He wondered how he would ever get back home after they released him. He wondered if he'd ever see Ruby Rue again. One week rolled slowly into the next in Beau's little cage. Dr. Janet had placed a strange, hard wrapping around his arm, which had made it hard to move, but the pain seemed to lessen every day. The farmer and his wife often came to visit him to clean his cage and refresh his leaves, though the leaves were never quite as tasty as he liked. He enjoyed their visits, but there were still long, quiet hours between them. Beau had a lot of time to think, and a lot of time to miss his friends, family, and home. One time, the farmer's grandchildren came to visit, and Beau found the small creatures very interesting. They were loud and moved very fast. They seemed to think that he was interesting as well. They sat in front of his cage, pointing at him and talking excitedly. They even tried to feed him some apples, which Beau remembered Ruby Rue talking about once. Beau tried the fruit, but found the taste very strange. The grandchildren laughed as he shook his head, trying to get the taste of apple out of his mouth. He didn't know why Ruby Rue seemed to like the taste so much. If he ever saw her again, he would have to tell her so. A couple of times during his long stay at the farmer's house, when Beau was looking out across the field, he thought he could see a kangaroo far off beyond the fence. It was hard to tell because it was so far away, but Beau liked to imagine that it was Ruby Rue, waiting for the day when he'd be released. Finally, after what seemed like a lifetime, Dr. Janet visited Beau again and took off the itchy wrapping around his arm.
This looks great,
she said as she gently moved Beau's arm in a circle.
Sounds like it's time to get this little guy out in the wild again then. I'll have Greg take him to the eucalyptus grove at the edge of our property later today. I'm sure this little guy will like it there.
If Beau had hind feet like Ruby Rue, he would have jumped clear up into the sky with happiness when he heard these words. He was going to be released today. Of course, he didn't know how he was going to get home, but he wasn't worrying about that now. At least it would be one step closer to his home. A couple hours later, the farmer took Beau in his arms again and drove to the edge of the property where a thin eucalyptus grove stood. With a couple pats on the head, the farmer lifted Beau up to the tree and watched as he climbed, both his arms working just as they should. Cheerio, little tyke. Don't go breaking any of those bones again. The farmer smiled and waved, then slowly drove his green tractor back home. As soon as the sound of the farmer's tractor died off, Beau was surprised to hear someone calling his name.
Beau! Right here, Beau!
It sounded like Ruby Rue. Beau climbed down and looked all around to find where the voice was coming from. Then he saw her, bounding along the fence and towards him.
Ruby Rue! He waved vigorously. How'd you know I was here? I've been watching you almost every day. I've been waiting and waiting to see if the farmer would release you. I was so excited to see the farmer drive you out today, I almost couldn't stand it. Oh, I have a million questions for you, but first, I'm sure you've been missing your home and family after all this time. What do you say we take a little trip back to your eucalyptus grove, and then we can catch up later?
Beau smiled and sighed happily.
Oh, Ruby Rue, those words are like music to my ears.
Not that long ago, I thought I didn't want to be in my grove, oh no. All I thought about were all the things that weren't right in front of me. Oh, but after this adventure I see, oh, that contentment is what I need, enjoying the beauty in front of me. The minute Beau entered his grove, he felt like he never needed to leave again. He could hear the babbling brook. He could smell the rich, sweet leaves waiting to be eaten. He could see his family waving at him high up in the branches. Here you go! Ruby Rue stood next to a tree, and Beau gently got off her back, clinging to the familiar bark.
Thank you, friend, Beau said. I guess our little adventure didn't go quite as planned, but I guess I'm still glad for what happened. It made me realize how many of the good things I was ignoring right where I live. I mean, there's lots of fun stuff to explore out there in the big world, and I know it's okay to be adventurous and see it all. But it's not okay when I stop seeing the beautiful things right in front of me in my own grove. I guess our little adventure taught me that being happy with what we have is very important.
Beau took a deep breath of familiar air. Ruby Rue smiled as she watched Beau climb up the tree, making his way towards some delicious leaves.
Say hi to your family for me, she called up to him. I'll come back tomorrow and you can catch me up about your adventure.
Sounds good, said Beau, waving down at her. As he climbed toward the leaves, he noticed the beautiful orange hue beginning to fill the sky. The sun was setting, and he saw for the first time in a long time what a lovely view his home had of the outback. He couldn't believe he had ever found something to complain about here. Then, as he watched the sun slowly setting, he reached out, grabbed a big bunch of leaves, closed his eyes, and took the most delicious bite of his life. He was happy to be right here. Yes, Momo?
Well, I was just wondering, perhaps, just like Beau thought somewhere else would be better than his own home, maybe I've been getting things mixed up with my acorns as well.
What do you mean by that?
Well, maybe my acorns are just fine. Maybe I'm just comparing them to something else, but they are fine the way they are. I mean, they all are tasty, and that's the point, right?
I think you're exactly right, Momo. That is what our virtue in this story is all about. Contentment. Contentment means that you are happy and thankful for what you already have. It's so easy to look at all the other things people have, nice houses or toys or schools, and to want those things for ourselves. It's okay to work hard and to get what we want, of course, but we also have to practice being content along the way. Being content means that we can be happy right where we are with what we have.
Now that I think about it, I don't think Vera's acorns were as perfect as they looked. I think she's just really good at organizing them on her shelves.
That's a great observation, Momo. Maybe instead of throwing away your acorns, you can just work hard on organizing them a different way.
Wonderful! That's a great idea. Oh, my acorns. I'm so sorry I thought about throwing you away. Will you ever forgive me?
Oh boy, Momo's talking to his acorns again. Well, maybe I'll spend some time helping Momo organize these acorns. But first, it's question time. Question 1. What does it mean to be content with what we have? Question 2. Have you ever wanted something that someone else had? How did it make you feel?
Oh, my precious acorns. I can't believe I almost betrayed you. Oh, because of a few scratches. Don't worry, my little ones. Momo is going to organize you now, and you'll be able to stay here. Oh,
Can I help you organize,
precious
Momo? I love a good organizational project.
Oh, of course. Why don't you start with that pile, and I'll start here. But first, a little snack to give me energy to organize.
All right, everyone. We'll be back soon for another Lamplighter story.